Hello, everybody. I am Chaplain Stephen McDermott with the 522, and I'm here with Chaplain Daniel Claypoole, who is our family life chaplain. And, sir, you've been in 15 years total.
Sure.
You said Air Force and Army.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, Chaplain Claypoole is our family life chaplain, so I figured who better than to talk to him about some of the issues that our families might be going through with regards to the COVID. So, sir, right now it looks like we're kind of coming out of the tunnel, right? The tunnels, we see the light at the end of the tunnel, but we know that these families have been going through a lot of difficult times being, shelter in place, as we say, right? So, what are, in your opinion, what are some of the struggles that families faced under this confinement, under being in such tight quarters? How would you, from your foxhole, what would you say?
Well, you just used the phrase shelter in place, and I think that most of us know that we hadn't had the shelter in place before COVID-19, especially our active duty members in the community that suddenly had to do so. And so I think that they're faced with uh, facing family issues that they were able to escape in some sense before.
Mm-hmm.
So I find through being here a couple years and uh, 300-400 hours of counseling that some of the unique trends is that we just get busy if we're having an issue in our relationships at home, we get busy.
Just to occupy us.
And so if you're sheltering in place at home to try to keep from getting the virus, and you can't get busy, you can't escape.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think about a caged animal. You don't want to mess with a caged animal that's rabid or whatever. And sometimes we can feel that way. We don't have any way to escape. Now, what are we going to do with
Sure.
these feelings? What are we going to do with these thoughts? And so, and so I think it's both the unknown and the known. How long is this going to last? Kind of like deployment.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
it's kind of neat to see that this is going to be 12 months or 15 months. There's an end
Where
point.
you know the end, or there's an end rather.
But when you're sheltering in place and dealing with challenges that you've been able to cover up with a lot of work, you may not know when the end of this is going to be. And I think that's why some of our families are facing the challenges. And then suddenly there's some things that's known because they were able to overlook them. But now we're all sheltering in this room, for example. If we're in this room and we're sheltering in this room, there's some things that we become aware of that we wasn't really aware of, but we're all so busy. So I think it's both the unknown and the known.
So,
Yeah.
what would you say if couples they're in the house, you said there's really nowhere to go, their tensions are starting to rise, and that expression of the snowball going downhill picks up steam and mass and all that stuff. When they start to see tensions rise, what are some of the best practices to, pump the brakes and, obviously you don't want this thing picking up too much speed because then it's so much harder to stop.
I thought about the snowball when you were saying that. I was visualizing in my mind the snowball just getting bigger and bigger, going down the hill. So I think it's self-awareness, really.
Mm.
I get a little bit excited, or if I get angry or I get fearful, it's good for me to be able to recognize those kinds of symptoms, those signs and symptoms within myself. So I would say self-awareness is probably key there as you talk about um, you know, what can we do? What's some best practices? Just recognize what's going on within yourself. My hands are feeling sweaty. Why am I speaking in this elevated way that I wouldn't normally? Why am I thinking the things that I'm thinking? And maybe just pausing. I've done a lot of training with 7 Habits of Highly Effective People in the past, and And one of the things that we teach there is to pause, think, and act. Place a pause between stimulus and response.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you've got that kind of awareness, self-awareness going on inside of you when you're feeling the sweaty hands and you're feeling the elevated heartbeat and you're getting this kind of physiological reaction inside, God has given us the ability to place that.
Flags are going up, the
That-
red lights are going off. Danger, Will Robinson.
Giving us the ability to place that pause between stimulus and response, so that we're not just right back there in our spouse's face.
Mm-hmm.
We can pause there and we can think. And one of the other things I was thinking about was grace, being able to extend grace to our spouse.
Mm-hmm.
And understand that they're probably sensing some of the same kind of things that we're experiencing too. And that's an opportunity to identify. It's an opportunity to empathize. And if you can identify and you can empathize and you can be self-aware, I think you're more likely to not end up in, I don't know, a 72-hour hold out in the barracks, which separates you from the problem,
Yeah.
but it doesn't really help you to deal with the problem other than maybe some reflection. So understanding those things that's going on inside of you as they're going on may help keep you from reacting in a way that's not beneficial to your relationship future, if that makes sense.
I remember I said this to Lynn Fontaine when I was talking to her earlier, that it was Plato who compared our emotions to the horses in a charioteer, like chariot racing, the good old Ben-Hur, and there's lust, there's greed, there's envy, there's sloth, and Plato asked the question, who's in charge, you or the horses? And how many times has somebody got on that horse of anger and just the horse took them to places they don't want to go? And then you get the domestic violence, you get the bar fights, you get flipping out at senior officers or whatever. And I like we said, that pause between the event and the reaction to it, because we know when emotion's up, logic is down, and just with the frontal lobe, the court just shuts it right down. And I tell soldiers, like, trying to reason with somebody who's drunk, it just ain't gonna happen. You got to get the emotions down, just like you have to get this person sober up before you can begin to reason with them. The other thing you were saying too, it hit me is, a lot of what we do in the spiritual life, we have to hold up that spiritual mirror. We have to be honest with ourselves. And when we're not honest with ourselves, there's a lack of integrity, because then I'm starting to enter into the fantasy world. I've left the real world, and I'm entering into this fantasy world where, hey, I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread, and that's
Pride
problematic.
comes before a fall.
So, in that question, if we continue this down this path here, tensions are starting to build up. I'm looking at my spouse, and they're doing something really that aggravates the heck out of me. How do we tell the person we love that they're really pissing me off? That I'm upset, I'm angry. How do I do that without escalating the situation?
I would say tell the person that you love that they're annoying you in a loving way. If you truly do love them, then there is a way that you can get your point across in a loving way. And so I think that requires respect. That's one of our Army values, right? Honesty. What is our Army values? Honesty, loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, personal courage, and integrity. We emphasize that at the very beginning of our career in the military, and it's a great foundational point to launch from, not only for the basic trainee who I spent about 5 years with in my 15 so far, but it's to launch from that foundation. I love you, but you're annoying me. And I want to be respectful to you, but the reality is you're getting on my last nerve, and it's because I've found other ways to deal with my challenges in your absence. And now I'm trying to figure out how to deal with them with you here. And it takes an adjustment, you know. Can we turn that around and that big ship around in 3 months? Probably not.
It's like somebody
Definitely
coming home.
not in a few minutes. Or
Somebody
an
coming
hour.
home for a deployment, the same thing. Like, I'm used to running the house.
Absolutely.
Now you're back in here, and there's a readjustment.
Yeah, why didn't we do a pre-deployment briefing?
Before COVID happened, right?
Yeah, it really is. I hadn't thought about it that way. This has really been like we've reacted to contact in our deployed situation here, and the enemy, we can't kick him, we can't shoot him, you know. This virus is unseen, you know, and it has kind of fanned the flames of unrest that was already going on inside of many. And so, how do we deal with that? We deal with it in a loving and an honest and a respectful way. And if it takes, so I was trained in prep back in 2011, and now there's prep 8.0, and I'm doing, just as soon as I leave here in an hour, I'll go and set for 7 hours and be refreshed on the latest version of that.
This is the Strong Bonds you're talking about. Yeah. Strong Bonds prep.
And so we learned the speaker-listener technique, and I use it a whole lot right here in this room.
Say that again. The
Speaker-listener technique. Speaker-listener technique.
Oh, the two, speaker and
That's
listener.
right.
Okay.
We got speakers and listeners, and so communication goes both ways. So if you're annoying me, and I can make you aware of that in a respectful way, you know, then I would practice my skills of being a speaker, and I teach listening skills too.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree with me. You've got your own brain, you've got your own judgment. But if you can show me that you heard me without trying to disprove me or discredit me, then you can show me that you respect me in our communication.
Which is a big thing.
Without even knowing my name.
I know that we often talk, like I do this when I do marriage prep and I can counsel myself, you know, the whole first person I, the you accusative, first person I, like, you know, I'm tired of you always putting your clothes on the floor and you're doing this and you're doing that, and just, you know, the person's just going to fire back. You know, you get fired upon, you're going to return fire.
Escalation.
And, you know, how to talk, this is how I'm feeling. You know, it was always one of the ways I would talk to people, the first part, this is how I'm feeling. And hopefully the person that you're telling that to has the maturity to realize, oh man, I need to look at that. You know, that's one thing. And it also, sometimes reverential humor, not sarcastic, not spiteful humor. Sometimes humor can go, I think it's a wonderful gift from God, can go a long way to diffusing a situation. And I say to couples like, you know, the wife goes to the husband, you know, if the terrorists ever attack, I guess we can hide in the hamper because apparently it can never get hit. You know? So, and the kids see that, and they see the parents going back and forth in a joke away. The husband's like, oh, yeah, all right, you got me. And it creates an atmosphere in the home of joking. I mean, there's certain times where that kind of conflict resolution is not appropriate. You know, something serious, or if it can become spiteful.
Yeah, if you always go to joking.
Yeah.
Then that could be a challenge. You know, you could be deflecting. You could be, it's kind of pop smoke. I don't want to deal with this right now, so I want to joke, you know. But yeah, I think that humor is appropriate in the right
context.
Yeah.
All right, last thing. Couples struggle. What is, if you could always pull, you know, we say keep around in the chamber, right? If there was one go-to that very often is the case, what would be a good bit of advice giving to a couple that's struggling right now, and say you don't even know any of the circumstances? What's just a good general bit of instruction for a couple that's struggling?
So I think the majority, you know, we could take COVID-19 out of the equation and still find a solution to this. This is just a recent occurrence that stirred some issues that we already had, as I mentioned earlier. And my mind goes back to what I've been taught through the years within the chaplain corps and in some of our Strong Bonds training programs. and that would be one of the 7 habits that I learned. Seek first to understand, and then to be understood. And so, yeah, I think that if you're a struggling couple and you're trying to figure out how to deal with this situation, understand from that other person's perspective, value that person's perspective by giving them the grace to extending the grace to hear, and then present your side. If we can help the chain of command stay focused on the mission that we have here by helping head off some issues at the pass with a simple skill as seeking first to understand and then to be understood, we can really save some time and money and hard feelings and effort, and really
Save some families.
lean forward and progress instead of digress and make things worse.
Thank you so much for your time. Friends, if you're hearing this and maybe you might be struggling or you know someone's struggling, first of all, realize that we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and maybe even by the time you are watching this video that we got the all clear. But I think there's something that we can learn if we struggle through this. Our takeaway is, what is our lessons learned? And as the Chaplain Claypoole was saying, how do we move forward? How do we lean forward? Not just to be reactive, but to be proactive. And I think situations like this reveal something about us, who we are as a person, who we are as a couple, who we are as a family. And for me, I'm a former teacher. Everything is a teachable moment if we allow it to be. So I hope this has helped you, and stay tuned, and we're going to have a couple more sessions coming up to follow. God bless you all.